Welcome to Spirit Outspoken, the podcast for Christians who are ready to explore the deeper side of faith.
We believe God's truth is bigger than what we've been taught, and that real spirituality isn't something to fear, it's something to discover.
Each week, we open the space to explore miracles, energy, healing, consciousness, and divine science, all through the lens of a God who loves us and a faith that's still unfolding.
Whether you're deconstructing, rebuilding, or just feeling spiritually stuck, this is your place to reconnect with wonder, deepen your walk, and let the Spirit speak. Welcome back to Spirit Outspoken. Today we're joined by the wonderful Malia Grace, author of the children's book Cody's Whisper and creator of The Whisper Way. Malia's work helps children and parents reconnect with themselves, each other, and the natural world. In our conversation, we'll explore how stories like Cody's Whisper remind us of the beauty and wisdom all around us, from the moon and the trees to the animals that share our world. We'll also talk about why these lessons are so important in today's fast-paced world, and how simple daily practices can bring more presence, healing, and belonging into our lives. So settle in and get ready to be inspired by the magic of nature, the power of story, and the joy of rediscovering connection with Malia Grace.
My pen name is Malia Grace, and there's a reason behind that. When I wrote Sacred Self, I wasn't sure how I wanted to name myself, and I decided I did want to choose a pen name, but I wanted it to have meaning. And I never had children. I always wanted them. I desperately wanted kids. It was like so innate in me from the time I was a child. And so I always wanted a daughter named Malia, and my grandmother's name is Grace. So that's where I came up with
Beautiful.
Malia Grace.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
That
That's
is
So it's
beautiful.
like my brave daughter that I never had with my grandmother's wisdom. That's where everything came from with Secret Self and then this children's book. I always wanted to write a children's book. I just never really knew how to make that happen. And there are so many things and so many messages that I want to share. And that was just a simple way for me to do that, to get to the root. And part of a lot of the work that I've been doing lately is getting to the root of things.
Mhm.
And that's it, with children and with their parents and healing all together at the same time.
That's beautiful.
Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Yeah,
Oh my
absolutely.
gosh.
We're honored to have you here and so excited to hear more about your thought process, how you came to this point, background on the children's book. I mean, it's so beautiful. Cody's Whisper
Thank
is
you.
such a beautiful story for parents to share with their kids.
I'm getting so much incredible feedback from parents and even therapists and wellness practitioners. It's so validating for me because I knew what message I wanted to share. I just didn't know exactly how it would be received. And I'm so pleased with how people are receiving it and how much a lot of people connect with it. And I wrote this book for a number of reasons. And one of them is um, I have some very special people in my life that are either, have attention deficit and also on the spectrum. And so when I decided to write my children's book, Cody's Whisper, I knew I wanted to write it from a child's perspective that may have trouble focusing or may even have autism, or maybe even a child that just doesn't feel seen and doesn't feel understood. And I think all of us at one point or another in our lives have felt like we maybe don't belong or we don't or are not understood. And so I wanted to write it from that perspective. So that's why my character, Cody, has trouble focusing and he stutters and he is quiet and he doesn't like loud noises. And I chose a coyote to be my main character because as I've been going through a lot of my healing from childhood experiences, I've really processed a lot from my relationship with my dad. And my dad was a Vietnam vet. He suffered from severe PTSD. And he was not the most patient man. He was a provider. a protector, an amazing supportive father. However, he struggled with, being patient, and he could be explosive. And that's another reason I wrote this book, because gosh, if my parents would have had some of the calming skills that I'm trying to teach in this book, things would have been so much different in my upbringing, But my dad was very connected to the Native American culture and coyotes and wolves. So he even had some of them in his office, these really beautiful, like coyote heads or wolf heads in his office. And so that's why I decided I wanted my character to be a coyote. The reason why I decided to write about nature in this book, helping children reconnect with nature, is because I was just reading a study by Miles Richardson. Have you guys heard of him, Miles Richardson?
No.
He's done a lot of research. He's a journalist, and he shares that nature connection is down 60% since 1800. And that's caused by urbanization, wildlife loss, parents not passing down nature teachings like maybe our indigenous ancestors might have. That's gone in a lot of families and a lot of cultures. So that nature wisdom is not being passed down from family to family anymore. And loss of nature language in books is down 60.6%.
Wow.
So
That's interesting.
it's really, really alarming, actually. So without big changes, that decline is only going to continue, especially with all of the distractions that we have in our world today. I mean, our children now are born with technology. This is the first generation that's born with technology at a very, very, very early age. And that can cause such a disconnection to something bigger, something greater, to the natural world and respect for it. So, I feel like the solution is early nature exposure, exposing kids to green spaces. Even if they're in urban areas, there are still green spaces that you can find in your community somehow, because we're not separate from nature. Ecosystems thrive through interconnection. Like, I don't know if you know this, but I learned this recently that trees have an underground network, the mycorrhizal network, and they communicate with each other through this underground network, and they'll send nutrients to each other if they need it. If there's like some sort of infestation or disease or whatever it is, they'll send nutrients to each other, which is so fascinating to me.
So crazy. So wild. I think that's so amazing.
I know, it's so interesting. And when you learn some of these things about nature, it's like, wow, that's like magical, It's like,
It is.
just learn that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I've
Joe
it,
Rogan just did a whole clip on this. Did you see
did
that?
he?
Yes,
No.
I wonder what it was specifically, but it was like about plants having consciousness. And like they are, to your point, like looking out for their network and sending nutrients, and they're able to adapt and like think, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And like there's other things where it's almost like plants can almost intuit certain things.
Yes.
So
Yes.
they will lean a certain way, based on where the light's coming. But if you do the randomization, a human couldn't anticipate where it is. The tree or the plant will like go to where that light will end up coming before anybody could, know. It's
That's crazy.
weird. Yes. So to your
It's
point, like there's so much we have yet to learn. Like this is going to get very
yeah.
complicated for vegetarians,
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
but for real, like this is
But
going to be a
these are
problem.
but these are some of the indigenous teachings that are passed down from generation to generation that have been lost. And yes, these are gifts from the earth that are helping sustain our lives and other lives. That gratitude for the end of a life of something, whether it be, a plant or an animal, it has been lost. And I think that's something that we as an American culture and even other cultures across the world need to bring that back somehow. I recently read a book, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she's an indigenous elder. And she talks about some of the stuff that we're talking about now and how a lot of gratitude and giving back. So not only taking from the earth, but also giving back to the earth. And there are ways that we can do that. So that's for a whole nother book. In writing Cody's Whisper, in the book, Cody, the coyote, goes through and he's feeling really misunderstood. He's been made fun of in school and he is feeling really down. So he decides to go out into nature and he asks the moon for advice and he asks the sun for advice and he asks the tree for advice because they all have wisdom to share. And then he asks some of the forest animals for advice. And it's such a beautiful story of honoring your own personal gifts because we all have something that's totally unique and different than anybody else on this earth to share. And that's a beautiful thing. And to honor that instead of trying to fit into what everybody else is doing or what you feel people expect of you. So I I feel at the end, he sees his worth and realizes that his gifts are unique and that he can shine his light uniquely, and it's a beautiful thing. And I decided at the end to also include a list of ways that parents can work with their children to help them cope with really, stressful moments because we all have them. We all have moments of overwhelm and stress, especially in today's day and age. There's so many things coming at us at all angles, at all times, and finding ways to center yourself and calm yourself is so vital. I know my parents had the best intentions. They loved us so much, but they did not have those tools. They did not have those tools. And many caregivers don't model emotional peace and how to facilitate that. So my hope is to inspire connection with the self and with each other and reconnecting with nature to help center us. And I was talking about ADHD and autism. It's increasingly common today. 1 in 9 children now receive a diagnosis, and diagnoses are rising. So technology is one of those contributing factors. So nearly 80% of these children have multiple conditions, anxiety, learning challenges. So it makes it really difficult to emotionally regulate. It makes it really difficult to pay attention. And research is showing that simply spending time in nature, even as little as a 20-minute walk, can temporarily match the effects of ADHD medication on focus.
That is so true. So when my kids were little, whenever they got fussy, it was always like in the stroller, we're going outside. And we'd just do one lap around the block. And I kid you not, it was like they were a whole different child when we got back. Or we'd stand on the porch and look at something, or we'd go outside, but just a little fresh air. And for me,
For us.
yes. And I think this book is just so beautiful because when you read it, there's so many lessons to be learned for kids, but also, like you were saying, for caregivers. And the appreciation and looking at everything in nature and what it offers us, and that gratitude piece that you were talking about, and helping us slow down and realizing that everything has a contribution and a beauty behind it. You go through the moon and then you go to the animals and then you go, and everything contributes. And we start to have just this beautiful appreciation for everything. I mean, I absolutely love everything about this story. I just think it's so great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
Yeah.
and
so
Rach,
much.
like what you're saying is so true. Like when you assign meaning to these things that exist all around us, it kind of creates opportunities for kids to stop and almost have this moment of mindfulness without even
Yeah.
really realizing it.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
Rachel knows this. I am absolutely obsessed with astrology. And like I'll point out Jupiter or I'll point out the moon and I'll talk to the
Yeah.
kids about like what they mean.
Yeah.
And now they will stop and be like, "Look at the moon. What is the moon doing? Is it
Love that.
almost full?" And is it and they know it's about like our emotions and our inner world, right? So it kind of just draws out what I believe each of us intrinsically know. We've just forgotten, you
We've
know?
forgotten.
So having this beautiful book that's age appropriate that helps show us like, "Oh my gosh, look at this amazing world that is our teacher," is so cool. And like just to kind of do a double click on how nature is so important. Rachel did this whole clip on, now I'm blanking. Is it the Schumann resonance or
Schumann.
Yes.
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 Yes. I
So
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
yes. So, like the Earth's frequency, like being out in nature, literally gets our brains into a natural alpha brainwave state.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
that's, which is like the calm, grounding energy. It is a physical thing that's happening. This isn't like woo woo, you guys. Like
Right.
tree huggers knew what was up. Like we were making fun of them,
We were
but
making fun of them, but they had something there,
yeah, like
you
we should
know?
all go outside and start hugging some trees because
Yeah. It's
it's
grounding.
it's
Mhm.
grounding. Yes, yes. So, giving parents and kids a tool that they can learn from is just really special. Wait, so I have a question. So, is there like you said that there was a meaning between the coyote and your dad and that part, like is there a spirit animal reference here or maybe why you picked that character or was that predominantly from your dad?
It's my dad, and also it is sort of a spirit animal for me. I have some Native American history in my ancestry, and I'm really, really finding myself deeply connected to that. And they honor the coyote, and yeah,
It's
that's a
beautiful.
big part of it. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. So, we as caregivers, as parents, we can be the cycle breakers. We can pass down this wisdom to our children. And we can change these patterns. I mean, our kids are on their phones, on their iPads, on their computers. It's constant and it's creating such a disconnection. And do we need to completely take phones and technology away? Of course not. But there are ways to help reconnect our children to the natural world and something greater than just our immediate selves and technology and what that does. So we can replace stress and reactivity with mindfulness and care that maybe we wish we would have had growing up. It would have changed so many things. And in my upbringing, I know that. And even in how we raised our son, my stepson. So he was 5 when I started dating my husband, and so I was a big part of his life at a really young age. And had both my husband and I been raised with some of those calming techniques, that would have made such a difference in, raising him. So, you know, each calm moment that we are able to create with a child, it really does change their future. And, I'm learning so much about indigenous cultures and the knowledge that they pass on to their children. And I just learned that 80% of Earth's biodiversity is stewarded and protected by indigenous people. Only 5 to 6% of the population.
Wow.
5%, 5 to 6% of the population is what's protecting those natural spaces. That's insane.
That's insane. And it's just so sad, you know? I
It
mean, it's like
is.
we just don't get it. We're investing more in things like big pharma and all of these different things that really like only get us sicker. And like, listen, there's a time and place for
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals. I'm not saying that. But
Yes.
we are destroying the way that God has enabled us to find healing and peace and reverence just by stepping out of our front doors. And because we don't get it, we don't know, because we don't see it, we can't see the healing properties, we think it doesn't exist. And that is the problem.
Because we're so disconnected from that. But when we reconnect to that, and that's where my spiritual journey began, was spending time in nature. And we have to remember that. There's a remembrance that happened for me. And it sounds like it did for the two of you somehow. But what she teaches in the book that I'm reading, Braiding Sweetgrass, is what they teach is that we can be reciprocal with the earth, that we can take only what's needed, never take more than half, give back and protect balance, give something back to the earth. And there are so many different ways of doing that now. There's all these regenerative practices. I don't know if you guys have ever watched the film Common Ground. Have you seen it?
Mm-mm. No. Tell us about it.
Okay, that's homework.
I know I'm writing it down.
Common Ground, and it's on, I believe, Amazon Prime, if I'm not
Oh, okay.
mistaken.
Okay.
It is so beautiful, and it talks about some of the things that we're talking about, but it gives hope because there are so many small farmers now that are utilizing these regenerative practices like rotational grazing, planting multiple crops so that it's not just monocrops. Planting multiple crops helps them not only nourish the soil, but also help the plants protect each other. What one plant might repel, the other one uh, attracts those pests. So when you plant them together, they help protect each other. And indigenous cultures teach this. It is like, just they know it and they pass it down, and it's what everybody knows, but we don't know it. We don't know it. And she talks about seed saving and water stewardship, and about how all of that contributes to healthy soil and biodiversity and clean air and water. And I also just started reading, oh my gosh, it's so good, The Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv. And he shares that if children don't grow up knowing about nature and appreciating it, they won't understand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they don't understand it, they won't protect it.
Mm,
And if they don't, who will?
Yeah.
So this book, Cody's Whisper, is a tiny little seed, a tiny little seed that my intention is to plant in parents and in children, to remember to get out, appreciate nature. And then as I wrote the book, I was like, okay, there's so much more I need to share. There's so much more so many more tools that I can give, because prior to releasing the book, I shared my book with two of my girlfriends who are elementary school teachers, and they read the book to their class, and they developed some discussion questions. And I was like, oh my God, okay, there's so much more to this than just the book. Like I have to like put together things that that parents can do with their children outside, and that teachers can teach to their kids. And so then I created the Whisper Way website. And on the website, I have all kinds of resources, and there's some for teachers that I now have on Teachers Pay Teachers that they can use, that cover some of the stuff that we're talking about. There's YouTube video resources, there's activities they can do with the kids, there's nature bingo. And the nature bingo, I did not realize how effective it was until I took my nephew to this little nature preserve, and they had this nature bingo card, and I'm like, oh my God, because I didn't know how he would do with it, because he has a hard time focusing. He's pretty squirrely. So I I was like, he's going to be running around like a banshee. But no, they have this beautiful nature bingo, and he was so into it. He was so into that. It was so awesome. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to create another one of these. So I created that. That's on there. There's so many other resources on there that parents and teachers can use with their kids. I think that's our job. That's our job right now. That's one of the things that we can pass down to the little people that are eventually going to be the ones making change. Because if it doesn't change now and it continues in the trajectory it's in with AI and all the other
Oh, yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
it's really, really scary. So we can learn from nature. We can learn from the moon and that there are cycles. And sometimes we might be down and we might not be shining at all like the moon. And sometimes we might be bright and full and light up the night sky. And both are great, both are okay. And we can learn from the sun and that we can rise above the storms and that clouds may try to hide us, but we're still providing light. We're still shining our light in a small way. We can learn from the creek and how we can flow around obstacles and challenges and carve our own path. And we can learn from the tree to stay rooted and to, lean on and contribute to others that are in our lives. And we can learn from the fox to observe and imagine and solve problems. And we can learn from the owl and to trust our inner wisdom, and from the wolf to find our pack, and the butterfly that change takes time, and from the deer that is gentle and brave. So we all have emotions, we all get overwhelmed, and how we respond to overwhelm as caregivers, as adults, impacts how our children learn how to handle them. And by honoring our feelings and not suppressing them, because honestly, I had a tendency to do that a majority of my life. That's what I learned. What I saw in my household was silence. Things were not communicated. And if they were outbursts, maybe even punching walls and doors. That's what I learned. And not that everybody experiences those things, but we can teach our children better, more effective, healthy ways of coping with stress. We can honor our feelings and ask, what are my feelings trying to tell me? What am I supposed to learn from this? Instead of, why is this happening to me? More like, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Okay, maybe I need to go outside and calm, or maybe I need to take some really deep breaths, or maybe I need to do one of these other practices that can help calm me. And so I can look at this problem in at a different angle from a different perspective instead of reacting. So we can shift our energy through breath, through movement, through grounding, through creativity. There's so many ways that we can shift our energy. So I really just want to instill like reweaving healing and wonder into the lives of humans. And,
Yeah.
whether that be through daily nature moments, seasonal gratitude rituals, model emotional naming, like naming our emotions. And, there's practices that I've put on my website, but, letting things pass and looking at them from a different perspective and learning from intergenerational traditions. We can do that. I'm working on companion products for Cody's Whisper, and I'm having this adorable pillow made that's a heart shape and it's like cream in color. And it says, "Let your light shine, little one." And it says Cody's Whisper on it. And I'm also working on creating a Cody stuffed animal, and he's so adorable. Oh my God, he's
Oh,
so
that's
cute.
awesome. I
Oh,
love that
he is.
idea.
He's so adorable. So the quote is, "Let your light shine. It is the spark that can help brighten the light in others."
That is just beautiful. That is
Thank
beautiful.
you guys for having me on.
My gosh.
Yes, of
Love it.
course.
You know what another thing is that I love about this is that if people aren't interested, right, in healing,
Yeah.
stepping into nature has such a powerful way of shifting us, whether we want it to happen or not. You know, it
I know.
finally gives us space and peace and an opportunity to just sit. I think that healing can take place within parents and caregivers themselves just by taking their kids out, whether they realize that
Yeah.
or not, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. My husband and I have a practice where it's fairly new for us, but once a week we sit down and it's basically like a weekly check-in. We go through like, okay, we acknowledge each other for things that we appreciate that they did this past week, that we've noticed and we want to express that gratitude. And then we go through and discuss anything that maybe we could have done better. And then we go through other things like planning the week. So there's no like things that, you know, expectations that one person has that the other one thought was going to happen. And, oh, I didn't know you were, going out to happy hour with a customer, so there's none of that confusion that can cause rift. But before we even go into that, we sit down and we're like, okay, so how are we feeling? Are we a rose? Are we a petal? Or are we a thorn? Are we a rose? Are we present? Are we grounded? Are we excited? Are we energy? Are we full of energy? Are we a petal? Are we like neutral, worried, kind of blah? Or are we a thorn? Are we frustrated, angry, just out of sorts? And if we're a thorn, it's like, okay, what can we do to shift our energy? Go outside for a walk, like go do some breath work or something like that. And oh my God, just those things have helped us so tremendously. And I
Yeah.
wish we would have had those tools, 20 years ago when we first started dating.
I think you have your next book all teed up.
Yes. Seriously. Yeah.
Figure
Now
out
let's
what we're
get
doing.
the relationship sorted. Yeah. Yeah. It's made a huge difference.
It's so true because our generation and the generation before, it was very much like, be quiet or stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Or,
Oh yeah, I heard that a lot.
yeah, like buck up and this is what we're doing. And there was so much suppression of emotions.
Yeah.
And that really has been such an eye-opening process for myself as I've been working through my own healing is
Yeah.
one, I'm allowed to have emotion. Like
Yeah.
I'm allowed to feel my feelings and they're not
Yes.
right or wrong.
Right.
And, I'm allowed to express that and I'm allowed to have
Exactly.
that, first of all.
Yes.
And then to just
Exactly.
acknowledge it and learn from it then. Like, where is this even coming from? What's it really about? How do I work through it?
Yes.
Because for years, and then I struggled with like immense anxiety because it was just like stuff. And you
Same.
can only do that for so long. It's like trying to keep the lid on a boiling pot. Like it's gonna just bubble over.
It's gonna erupt
Yeah.
at some point or another.
Yeah.
And that can sometimes be through, an emotional eruption. And sometimes it can be through illness.
Yeah. Yes. Like
Because
autoimmune diseases and and other things. But yeah.
yeah, and that's exactly what happened to me. And that was a big wake up call.
Mhm.
So I had to really, really, really look at doing some inner healing work because it was boiling over. And I was suppressing way too much. I was suppressing my whole life emotions and
Yeah.
it wasn't working. I couldn't do it anymore. So this children's book is the little tiny little seed that I'm planting with adults and children to help get that spark awareness. I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, I will tell you, when I read it, I almost felt a little emotional because it connected with me so deeply. Just, almost like speaking to my inner child and what I
Yes.
needed and the message of that. I mean, it's so beautiful. It really is. And I have no doubt it's going to help so many adults and kids,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
And
my
as another
intention.
adult that wants to be a cycle breaker and is raising 3 boys, and, my husband and I both, we talk about this a lot. Like, big, heavy emotions feel scary to us as adults because for whatever reason, like it didn't feel safe to have those emotions, right?
Yes.
And we don't want to pass that down. We want to be able to say the
No.
hard things out loud, sit in discomfort, work through that versus just be like, okay, we're just going to put it over there. I mean, just as recent as like a year and a half ago, I would read something that was like doing shadow work. And I was like, that
Yeah.
doesn't sound fun. I think that
I
means I'm going to
know.
have to face
Same.
some
Yes.
difficult things. And I just keep it light and love, 11, 11.
Sounds exhausting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But the truth is that our generation, I believe, don't have the tools to even work through some of those tough emotions unless you're doing the work, unless you're doing the shadow work, all these different things. So to equip not only the children with these tools, but to your point, the parents, whether they're serving their inner child or their own physical child, is so
Right.
helpful. And it's so
Yeah.
well done. And we're so honored to have you on Spirit Outspoken because I think so many people are looking for a way to, reconnect to maybe a more
Yeah.
experiential version of God. And nature
Yeah.
is that.
Right.
And, you
Absolutely.
see more people being like, my church is nature. Like that is where they are finding God because
Yeah.
maybe when they go to the church right now, they don't feel God there. But
Right.
if they're in nature, they're connecting in a different way. So I think a lot of people that maybe our parents didn't grow up in any type of religious or spiritual upbringing that would foster faith or connection, they are now seeking something and they have no idea what to not only do for themselves, but how do I raise kids when I was never modeled that, right? So,
Exactly.
yes. So this is just yet another way to empower parents to foster that environment at home, which I think is just really beautiful.
Absolutely. And on the Whisper Way website, so it's the whisper way.com. And on the website, there are some conversation starters between parents and children that you can have with your kids about a variety of topics. But it also gets the parents thinking, oh, wow, like never done that maybe for myself,
Yeah,
let alone,
absolutely.
Well, I
yeah.
love the quiz you have.
Yeah, so what your whisper spirit is, and it's super cute. You guys
I
should take
love
the
that.
quiz.
I'm gonna have my girls
I'm
take
going to
it,
take it.
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it. Yeah, they
Yeah,
love
take
stuff
it
like
and
that
have
too.
your kids take it. It's really cute.
I'm excited.
Well, this was such a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this beautiful conversation with Malia Grace. If you'd like to learn more, you can visit her website at the-whisper-way.com, where you'll find free resources for parents, caregivers, and teachers, as well as the playful Whisper Spirit quiz to enjoy with your family. You can also follow her on Instagram at MaliaGrace_blooming for more inspiration. And of course, don't forget to check out her beautifully illustrated book, Cody's Whisper, available now on Amazon. Until next time, may you take a moment to pause, reconnect with the beauty of the world around you, and remember that the whispers of nature are always guiding us home.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're ready to take your spirituality to the next level, be sure to check out our website, spiritoutspoken.com. There you can download free educational resources, read our latest blog posts, and join the Spirit Outspoken community.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Spirit Outspoken to stay up to date on news, happenings, shenanigans, and all things Spirit Outspoken.